Here is my story of dancing burlesque in Las Vegas. The plane touched down and the whirlwind began. I barely had time to drop off my bags in my room, and it was time for the photo shoot. The others had arrived in Vegas the night before and were wide awake, perky, and perfectly made up with pin-up hair and makeup. I, on the other hand, looked exactly like I had been traveling all night, because I had. Slapping on some makeup, as my friends did what they could with my hair, I realized that I could either back out of the photo shoot or let go and enjoy the moment. Even though it was far from what I had envisioned, I chose to let go of perfection and enjoy. Next up, a fashion show, where the five of us were to model 25 different outfits during an 8-minute segment. Taking into consideration the time required to walk on and off the gigantic stage, most of our costume changes were less than a minute long. As the number progressed, our neat stacks of costumes turned into crumpled heaps on the floor, and our brains frazzled. During the last costume change, I heard someone whisper loudly, "Nipple!" and then louder, "Nipple!" I looked up in time to notice the costume of one of the other dancers who was up next, and it had not been pulled down correctly. Her nipple was fully exposed. Just as she stepped on stage, another dancer grabbed her dress and helped her yank it into place. Disaster was averted, and we were an undeniable hit. Elated and exhausted, we went back to the hotel to sleep and prepare for our early morning tech rehearsal the next day. Tech rehearsal is where performers get 10 minutes of stage time to run through their routine, giving them the chance to see how their number works on the actual stage and allowing the tech crew the chance to figure out lighting and sound. The audio crew couldn't get our music to work, and because the stage was so much larger than our practice space, our placement was all messed up. At last, our music began to play, but no sooner had it started than it was shut back off and the next performer was called up. Our time had kept running, regardless of the fact that our music hadn't. We were going to have to perform without ever having done a full run-through on that stage. Off to the dressing room we went, where we crowded around the mirrored closet doors, altering the formations as best we could. But before we could finalize the changes, it was time to change into identical 1950s-inspired dark blue high-waisted shorts and red and white polka dot halter tops that tied around our necks and at our backs, and head out to the car show where we were working a booth. Putting on our tops, we discovered that no matter what we did, our strapless bras showed horribly. Our only other option was to go braless, which was not comfortable. To make matters worse, I had forgotten to pack sandals. All I had were my tennis shoes or my dance shoes, which were brand spanking new. No time like the present to break them in. As we hurried to the car show, breasts bouncing, our nipples started to rub painfully against the fabric of our shirts. Laughing about last night's near nipple slip, we held our arms over our chest to prevent our boobs from bouncing. But it didn't help. The fabric of the tops had never been washed. In fact, it had been starched repeatedly, and it was heavy and stiff, like sandpaper. By the time our shift in the 102-degree parking lot of the car show had ended, 2 of the women's nipples were bleeding, and I was hobbling. There wasn't time for all of us to shower, so we had to make do and start in on our elaborate pin-up hairstyles for that evening. Dirty hair holds the style better anyway, right? Looking better than we felt, with our fake lashes, fake hair, makeup, and costumes, we made our way back to the theater much quieter than the day before. I had blisters on the bottom of each big toe, the tops of my pinky toes, and on the inside of my right heel. The one on my heel was the size of a quarter and seemed to keep growing. While I was limping around backstage, one of the stagehands offered me some moleskin, which I gratefully accepted. Cutting myself a generous piece, I stuck it right on the blister. You're supposed to stick that on your shoe, not on your blister, he said, appalled by what I had just done. Of course I knew that. I was just so frazzled that I had done it wrong. I tried to pull the moleskin off my foot, but it wouldn't budge, and I was out of time. I buckled up my shoe and stood up. That was so much worse. The moleskin tightened up the space, making the shoe push harder against my blister. Nothing I could do now. The show was about to start, and I was about to dance in Vegas. I hurried on stage and froze into my first position. The voice in my head wouldn't stop chattering. It reminded me not to forget this foot position, to do my final cross on count 3, not on count 2. My heart was hammering away in my chest, and it was my heart that reminded me that this routine, this whole experience was about heart. I had fought so hard to be able to be here that I didn't want to miss it by being too much in my head. I wanted to bask in the lights. I wanted to hear the music, the vocals, and the roar of the crowd. I wanted to feel the strain in my body when I pushed it to do new things. I wanted to feel the sweaty palmed rush of nerves before each performance. Comfort or discomfort, I wanted to feel it all and not to be distracted, so distracted that I missed the joy of being where I was at, which was a mistake I had made more often than I cared to admit, and which I think most of us are guilty of. That is, we get so busy making sure things get done right that we miss the joy of the actual experience. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to enjoy myself fully and to absorb the experience of dancing on stage in Vegas. I breathed in, let go, heard, and felt the music. I turned into the passion and the joy of everyone dancing around me and the thrill of moving in unison. Sure, it had taken a lot for me to get to this moment, but moments like this, they were worth the hassle. I hadn't quit, and now here I was. My little duet part was coming up, and I couldn't wait to get out in front and show off a bit. Right on cue, I moved forward, and just as I was about to do my most powerful highest kick, I felt a gush of warmth pour into my shoe. I dropped the kick a little, but I kept dancing. My blister had burst. The pressure relieved, and like that, my foot felt better. How ironic that increasing the pressure, making my foot feel more uncomfortable in the short run, was the very thing that caused my blister to burst, providing me with instant relief, which was kind of like my whole trip. The way one challenge after another kept popping up. Backing off wouldn't have helped. It was only by navigating the negative, pushing through each challenge, increasing the pressure, that I found relief and was finally able to go home saying, yeah, I danced in Vegas. That was one chapter or one section of one chapter of Flaunt. Drop your cover and reveal your smart, sexy, and spiritual self. You can get it right now on Amazon, Kindle, Nook, audiobook, however you want, wherever books are sold. Just pick it up and enjoy quarantine. Bye.